Sorry, we're all a little distracted tonight. I'd like to welcome everyone in the gallery. We've got lots of people here and we've got quite a lot of questions tonight, so I imagine public forum will go for some time. But before we start, firstly I'd like to acknowledge the original custodians of the land we're meeting on, pay respects to elders past and present, and to any Aboriginal people who may be with us here tonight. Welcome everyone to this meeting of Council. The meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and people in the gallery may also be recorded, so just to make you aware of that. As councillors, we've all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and judgment. And I would also tonight like to make a very special announcement, which is to welcome Jack William Andrews, who is our honorary councillor, and our very own version of Jacinda Ardern from New Zealand. We've got Councillor Sophie Price, who has absolutely made history in Indigo Shire by being the first councillor to give birth while on active duty, not actually while on duty, but as a councillor. And so I think it is actually a momentous thing to see, firstly, young people on our council and to have someone take on the duties of councillor as well as becoming a second-time mum. And we're very proud of Sophie and very, very pleased to welcome Jack. Okay, so on that note, do we have any apologies or leave of absence? Any declarations of conflict of interest? Okay, so we'll go straight to open forum. As I say, we've got quite a number of questions tonight. I will ask if you possibly can, I'm not trying to cut people off, but if you can sort of make your preamble a bit brief, that would be great. If you can't, that's fair enough, but if you can sort of, condense it a bit, that would be good. Only because we've got so many questions from people. So the first ones tonight, I think we will start with Jamie Kronborg. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you, ma'am. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Nice to see you.
My question relates to Mayday Hill's historic site and old time truncated.
If you can.
The Heritage Council of Victoria confirms that Mayday Hill's hospital site in Beechworth is of both historical, architectural, technical and aesthetic significance to the state of Victoria. The Heritage Council rules that the site and its built and landscape environment satisfies 5 legal...
Thanks, James. Thanks, Councillor Trini. For inclusion on the Victorian Heritage Register. I'll mention 2 of those 5. Its importance to the course or pattern of Victoria's cultural history and possession of uncommon, rare or endangered aspects of Victoria's cultural history. I think it's fair to say that today, in the view of many people in this community, Mayday Hills is a site threatened by neglect, decay and the prospect of questionable development. I acknowledge that it's privately owned by a partnership of 2 Beechworth families, but in my view that ownership does not override, eclipse, preclude or ignore the high public interest in Mayday Hills' active conservation for the benefit of this community and for Victoria's people and their cultural heritage. More than 3 years have passed since the Heritage Council Permits Committee in 2015 heard appeals in Beechworth from George Fendick representing the site's owners, and from which the Heritage Council subsequently, 1, upheld the decision of Heritage Victoria's Executive Director requiring the owners to reinstate the decorative fence and gates at the main entrance to Mayday Hills at the top of Albert Road, and 2, varied some of the permit conditions relating to site subdivision but required the delivery of a fully detailed and costed work schedule to ensure proper conservation of the site's registered structures, a landscape maintenance and management plan, a heritage interpretation plan, and consequent matters which required the agreement and prior approval of this Shire Council. What actions are being taken by the Indigo Council and in concert with heritage authorities and government to ensure comprehensive and cohesive conservation of this site its component, structural and natural assets, and maintenance of its historic integrity?
So thank you for that question, Jamie. I'm going to actually ask the CEO to respond initially to this, but I would like to say that the concerns you've raised have been raised certainly with me by a great number of people across the community. I suspect other councillors have also had contact from people around the range of issues. So I think you're representing a significant group tonight when you raise these questions, and I'd like the CEO to start, and then perhaps Director Mark Florence to also add into that if need be. Thanks, CEO. Oh, sure.
Madam CEO, Madam Chair, Jamie, can I acknowledge you sent along the version of that letter, which you've truncated nicely. So, but I've got the full version here with all the background to it. Certainly, the issues that you raise are nothing new to council in terms of the councillors and staff who are very much aware of these issues and feel the same way about the things you've raised here. The other aspect here, which you haven't mentioned, is also the fact that there are people who are waiting for this subdivision to go through so they can actually acquire access to titles to property that they're seeking as well. So we've been progressing this while working very closely with the developer and with Heritage Victoria to seek a resolution to this. It has taken a while, it has taken a long time. Fair to say, though, the whole development is quite a complex process, and that overlay with the heritage values of it, as well as the technicality of all the different buildings that are involved, as well as all the different, planning permit requirements, make it quite a difficult one to work through. Notwithstanding that, recognise that there is a planning permit required, and there are some requirements of that permit, and as you rightly say, one of the more important ones in there was that a detailed schedule of works is completed to ensure the conservation. Just to clarify on that, the developer's not required to rehabilitate or refurbish the internals of the buildings. What both Council and Heritage Victoria is keen on is for the works to preserve the outside of it so that there's no further deterioration, so that while things are developing, that they're maintained, they're secured from external weather damage and that sort of stuff. So we have had a number of interactions with the developer and with Heritage Vic to try and expedite that. There has been some delays that have frustrated all of us. I'm sort of happy to say that there is progress going on at the moment in regards to those works being costed by a person who's satisfactory to both the developer and to Heritage Vic. So there's a person, a contractor who's skilled in the area of conservation buildings, who's currently going through the process of developing up the costings that are required for this planning permit. So we're got our fingers crossed that will happen over the next short period of time, and that process will be completed. And so the whole process of completing the subdivision and the works being done can occur as soon as possible. You mentioned also the fence in here, and we've got the same frustrations with the delays in that fence, but I am assured by the developer that he intends to do the fence. He has secured the materials and done some of the prefab works for that fence. For reasons that are frustrating to all of us, that hasn't been done yet, but he assures me that they will be done, and there's no impediment for that to happen. So I guess all I can say in terms of protecting the site, we're all aware of it. Heritage Vic has got some requirements to help protect the site. There are incentives on the developer to keep moving forward and actually doing these works, because it's holding up settlement, is holding up issue of title. So there's motivation for him to do the works and to get the money flowing for himself. There's also protections for the heritage assets themselves through what the planning permit says. So I might then just ask our Director of Development and Community Services maybe to add anything to that I've left out, perhaps.
Through the Chair, I think you've covered it fairly well. Just reinforcing that, council fully recognises the community interest in this site and the need to, as quickly as possible, expedite an outcome that is beneficial to all parties, and particularly the site and the buildings that are valued so highly.
Thank you, Jamie. Next questions are from Robin McLeish.
So I think we can all relate to now. It's been a very trying time waiting, but my first question is... Thank you. What are the specific services that council provides for farmland? And we had a dissertation last council meeting on the rating strategy. This is much simpler. This is, what are the special services that council provides for farmland?
So, Director of Corporate Services, Mr. Pinkerton.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So if you're after a list of services, the best place of finding that would be either in council's budget or the annual report, and that's where council lists out quite a range of services that is provided.
That's not the answer I'm after. The answer I'm after is, which are specific for farmland? I know the farmer is required to pay rates on his dwelling and the curtilage, the surrounding, and he should be paying residential rates, but then we need to know, what services do you provide for his land?
Okay, or her, of course. So last month my dissertation was from the rating strategy, and I reflected on your question, and I thought perhaps I should have added another section in there. So I think this will answer the question. I've printed off a copy for you as well. So I can give that to you in the break. But just under the benefit principle in the rating strategy, says one of the more misunderstood elements of the rating system is that residents often intuitively seek to equate the level of rates paid with the amount of benefit that they individually achieve. The reality is, however, that the rates are a system of taxation not dissimilar to income tax, and that no direct link to a particular level of benefit is required. It goes on to say local government is not different to this, with rates being used to subsidise the delivery of services and capital works that would otherwise be unaffordable if charged on a case-by-case basis. So there is no link to a particular set of services or programs that council provides for each of the different rating differentials. They're actually quite different things.
That might have been accepted in times gone by, but we are just going through a Royal Commission on fee for no services. So my question is, what services are specific?
The question's been answered. There are no specific services in the same way as...
Thank you very much.
There are
that was the answer.
That's
there
the
are
answer.
no
there
services.
are no. In the same way as everyone in this room contributes to the library, but not everyone uses it. That's the way the rating strategy works.
That's acceptable.
So your second question.
That's acceptable on the fact that people pay for what they get or what they can make use of. If nothing is provided, why do they pay? Okay,
so we gather that you're not happy with the system, but that's the system. So, second question.
No, but it's a new era where these things are being challenged. We'll wait and see what the Royal
Commission says, but at this stage we are going to continue to operate our rating system in accordance with the Local Government Act as it stands, and that's how it stands. Yeah. So, your second question.
Okay. When will the public be given access to the financial analysis used to identify the 7.3 million return on investment for the Kelly trials in the DOC project?
So the Ned Kelly Alive document, which is what refers to this, is a public document. Very happy to run off a hard copy for you if you like.
I've got all that.
So you said when will the public be given access?
Analysis? I don't want to know that it's going to have 58,000 visitors come in?
Those figures are in the document, Robin.
No,
I've read them today.
I'm quoting the figures, 58,000 and 7.3 million. How do you derive those figures?
Oh, okay. So you need to ask the authors of the document how they got those figures, because that
Correct.
document's not written by Indigo Shire Council. So I would be very happy to
But the
give you a
Shire
copy
Council
of it.
is committed to a $500,000 contribution.
Yeah. So
you can't make that without knowing what's in the document.
We rely on the expert advice, as we do with a range of things. Robin, I think you can read the document, and you could.
Which document?
Robin, please. This is the rules of open forum. You've asked the question. I'm answering it. The document is available. If you would like to question the authors of that document, their name is on it. You can ask them where they get their figures from, and at that point,
where's the document?
we need to. It's a public document, and I'll ask Alex to get a hard copy for you, made available tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your questions. And the next questioner is Ed Tyree.
Thanks, Mayor. Good evening.
Good evening, Ed.
You might be aware that as of 5 o'clock this afternoon, over 123,000 people had signed the petition to protect Stanley's groundwater from opportunistic exploitation by companies like Asahi Beverages. This level of support from people across the world indicates the strength of concern about the manipulation of precious groundwater resources in productive farming communities to the profit of a few. A recent front page story on the Saturday paper, which I have with me, dated August the 11th, about the Murray-Darling Basin water management and the South Australian Royal Commission into that, also captures these concerns. Could the Council inform the community about the progress of the Municipal Association of Victoria's recent request to Victoria's Water Minister to review and strengthen the regulatory framework which governs water extraction for purposes other than food production, and by which it will ensure community and environmental sustainability, and the motion to be put to the Murray-Darling Basin Association by Indigo Shire Council intended to ask the Victorian Minister to change the Water Act and require complete transparency of the processes by which public water resource is managed in this state.
Okay, thank you for your questions, Ed. In terms of informing the community, we put up a motion to the MAV, and in fact Alpine Shire supported the motion at the meeting, and to request that the Water Minister review and strengthen the Water Act to deal with this issue. That has been sent to the Minister, and we're waiting for a response, so hopefully that will come back to the MAV and will be included in that, and we'll make that public. This Thursday is when the Murray-Darling Basin Authority is meeting for their annual conference in Leeton, and Councillor Gaffney has already put up a motion to Region 1 that has been accepted, and I'm going on Thursday to put the motion to the National Conference to ask for their support to, again, ask the Victorian Minister to amend the Water Act to take into account the impact of bulk water extraction for the bottled water industry in agricultural areas. So hopefully we'll get that support, and I'll be reporting back on that. And in addition, the CEO and I were in Canberra on the 13th and 14th of August. We raised this issue with advisors and MPs across the political divide, and got extraordinary support from all of them without exception. They included Nick Zirabas, who is the Senior Advisor for the Office for David Littleproud, the Minister for Agriculture and Water Resources. He's asked for follow-up information, which we'll be providing to him. Stephen Jones MP, who's the Shadow Minister for Regional Services, Territories and Local Government, who said, and I quote, "I hate the bottled water industry. We need to do something about it." Lachlan Hunter, from the Office of Bridget McKenzie, who's the Minister for Regional Communications, and Lachlan also asked for additional information and was very concerned about the impact, and said as a farmer himself that he thinks there are grave concerns about this industry. Guy Reagan from the Office for Bill Shorten, who is currently the Leader of the Opposition. He's the Economic Policy Advisor, also saw that there were concerns with this in relation to agriculture. Mr Tamay Rigson, Senior Advisor to our new Deputy Prime Minister, Josh Frydenberg, and Treasurer. Again, very interested in the issue and saying that they think it's something that needs to be further explored. and Senator Janet Rice from the Greens, who's the spokesperson for Transport, Infrastructure and Rural Affairs, who was in fact saying that there should be a Senate inquiry into this industry. So I would say that this is actually resonating very, very strongly right across the political divide at state and federal levels.
Thanks for the update.
Okay, so Boyd Collins. Welcome, Boyd.
Evening, Mayor and councillors and
Evening,
staff.
Boyd.
My question to the Shire Indigo Mayor O'Connor. Has the Tri-Council review GC 85 been abandoned? If so, what is the reason for the Tri-Council Planning Scheme Amendment GC 85 being abandoned?
Would you like me to answer this one first, Boyd?
Can do.
Yeah, sure. So this is the planning amendment that looked into the impact of whether there was any opportunity to look at the amenity concerns around the water extraction industry. And there was advice from lawyers that the three councils, which were Indigo, Tawong and Alpine, that this was going to cost a lot of money for very little outcome. So for that reason, we decided not to go ahead with it. We also did feel that what was being proposed was going to have very little impact on the issues that are of concern to people, which is the amount of water that's being extracted. So it was really to do with truck movements and hours of operation, so it just wasn't worth pursuing it.
I understand the issue, but one of the mayors, I believe, said we cannot stop the water trucks.
Okay.
So that's an answer that came from him.
I don't think he's happy about it, Boyd.
I don't
Anyway,
care
your
whether
next
he's
question.
happy or not.
Yeah, this amendment wasn't going to stop the water trucks, that's quite right.
Dead right. Given that at least $140,000 has been wasted on Stanley Pastoral case at Kew Springs, this is another ratepayer's spend on the GC 85 exercise. I and others would like to know exactly the amount, with officers' time, of ratepayers' money spent on VCAT, Supreme Court actions and appeals at all hearings. Is the Mayor going to continue to use ratepayers' money to pursue to close the water industry in this area?
So just to correct a few things there, it wasn't $140,000, it was around $60,000 on the money that was spent by council. That wasn't around the GC 85 exercise, that was around the, the Kew Springs.
It's going to add to that figure.
There's no money being spent on that. As far as the officer's time, I think we'd have to take that on notice. Director Mark Florence, would you like to answer that?
So we don't have a practice of allocating or timesheets to particular operational programs, not as we do for capital programs. Just a couple of other corrections. So, as the Mayor says, $60,000 approximately was spent on the VCAT cases for the Kew Springs appeals. Council was not involved at all in the Supreme Court actions or appeals, so there was no cost to council with that in terms of those things, and certainly the GC 85 involved no cost to council at all.
And just in terms of your question to me, will I continue to use ratepayers' money to pursue the closure of the water industry in this area? I'm not using ratepayers' money at all around that, but I am absolutely committed to pursuing some resolution around the fact that at this stage it is pretty much an unregulated industry, and that's causing concern for farmers, for communities, and as we just heard from Mr Tyree, 123,000 people support my position on that, Boyd, this week. So, your next question.
Actually, going back to the $70,000, I did get correspondence from the last CEO that there was nearly $70,000 spent on VCAT and other...
okay, I said 60, my apologies, 70.
Plus, and he reiterated that it was plus officers' time. So I have doubled that figure,
okay,
which I think someone should be accountable for that money.
I think we're very accountable, Boyd. We all have to stand for election, and we're in the media about this. People tell us whether they support or oppose it. We're accountable on this.
Well, yeah.
So your next question, Boyd.
Okay. In the Stanley area, we have a few new people in the area that are acting as water police, tree police, and the road police, a vigilante mob. Is the Mayor going to be further guided by this lot? Is it headed by a conscientious objector, which is ex-AFP and diplomatic security background?
Okay, so firstly, it's not acceptable to talk about anyone's individual position, etc., in the chamber. So I'm going to have to ask you to just withdraw that last sentence, even though it's out there in the public. As to whether people are vigilantes, tree police, road police, we are advised whether or not there have been breaches to the conditions set on the planning that has been allocated by Indigo Shire, and generally speaking, there haven't been. If there are, people let us know and we follow it up, and we try to have a good communication with Tim Carey around any concerns that we have. So I don't think they're vigilantes, Boyd, that's your interpretation, but I think people do let us know, and equally, if people have behaved in a way that's unacceptable, we object to that and tell them to stop it. So I think we try to be as even-handed as we can about that. So I'm going to take that as a comment, really, and let's leave it at that one. That's your three.
I will withdraw that.
Thank you.
That two
appreciate
lines
that.
there, Mayor. If this behaviour continues, there is not a court in this land that supports their cause. I will be calling for this council to be dismissed and an arbitrator to be appointed if this behaviour continues.
Okay.
I would like a written response of money spent on the Stanley Water case, and that's my name.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you. You're most welcome to ask the Minister to dismiss the council and appoint an administrator. That's your right to do that. So I'll take that as a comment. And your written response request, I'll pass on to Director Mark Florence. Okay. Thank you, Boyd.
Thank you.
Our next questioner is John Baines. Welcome, John. Now, John, I have to say, your handwriting is slightly difficult to read.
I'm even finding it
Not
also.
easy for you to read. So I'll just get you to read the questions, and we'll answer what we can tonight.
Yeah, and I'll be brief. I'll just give a little lead in, which is because the councillors would be aware that, and others, that I am the chairperson of the Burke Museum and Historic Precinct Advisory Committee, and we recently on the 16th of August sent a response to council.
Yes.
I'm not going over that, but I would like to read one paragraph in that gives the context for my question.
Briefly.
Yeah, very briefly, and it's a positive one.
Oh, thank you, John.
The Burke Museum and Historic Precinct Advisory Committee understands and supports the thrust of the tourist strategy, acknowledging that it presents an exciting opportunity to take advantage of the expertise within Beechworth community and to create successful partnerships, public and private, to attract external, private and public funding that will enable the game changer outcomes. We also support the courthouse initiatives within the Ned Kelly Alive project.
Okay.
My question relates to our general response,
Sure.
but also came out of the article or the content of Ned Kelly Alive.
Yep.
And also the Baltimore Mail article about the Ned Kelly Vault and the courthouse today.
Sure.
My question is, does the endorsement of the tourism strategy, and I've read the minutes or all this data here, and it probably relates more to the Ned Kelly Alive and update in here, relates to that, but I'll start again. Does the endorsement of the tourism strategy lock-in recommendations reference the creation of Ned Kelly Alive Museum to the old Beechworth Jail and the shifting of the Ned Kelly Vault into the jail as part of it? If so, Why is this the case when there has been no comparative studies conducted to determine the best location within Beechworth for such a museum, and there has been no opportunity for community comment? The final part of my question is what authority did the Tourism Northeast in their paper, Ned Kelly Alive, have for including the concept of shifting the Ned Kelly vault into the jail, when the Burke Museum and Historic Precinct recommended in May 2017 that it could not be supported at that time, and confirmed at its meeting on the 6th of August 2018 there had been no change in the Indigo Shire Council to relocate it.
Okay,
Thank you,
John, for your questions. Just very briefly, tonight is when we will endorse the tourism strategy, and of course that then is, available for public discussion. That the Ned Kelly Alive project is separate to that, so they're two different things. The tourism strategy and the Ned Kelly Alive project, of course, they're related, and we are looking at both of those tonight to make a decision. In terms of I think what you're getting at was there discussion about purpose building another part of the museum for the Burke Museum was in your... And in terms of that, the paper does talk really clearly about a return on investment, says very clearly that it is much better to use existing facilities and buildings, and also that in terms of tourism, having... history in place is what attracts people. So the fact that Ned Kelly was in the jail is what attracts people to see the jail. And just to be really clear, that the Ned Kelly vault isn't being shifted, and that collection is, apart from 4 items, is actually a private collection, and those people are interested in getting it into a bigger venue. So there's a lot to this. It's very complex. We understand that. We've been discussing today the fact that we need to get... better messaging out there so people actually understand why things are being decided the way they are. But I'm also going to hand over to our Director, Mark Florence, just to add further. But just to let you know, we are talking about these things, John, and, taking your remarks into consideration.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thanks, John. Just a couple of higher-level things. That the tourism strategy identifies a number of pillars that you'd be aware of, and some of that is cultural heritage, arts and culture, food and wine, cycling, etc. And within that, in the cultural heritage component, includes the reference to the Burke and Historic Precinct Master Plan, which you're fully aware of course, which will really closely examine what happens in the precinct in the areas that Council has some control and some influence over. But one of the underpinning parts of the tourism strategy is that Council, and why we go in the game changer sphere, I suppose, is Council really needs to take opportunities to really enhance the stories that are prevalent around the historic precinct. So when focusing on the Ned Kelly Alive project, the courthouse is central to that. There's about 40 Kelly trials held in that courthouse. And that's different to the Burke Museum. The Burke Museum is Robert O'Hara Burke, as you know, and has a whole lot of other collections. So we're really interested in trying to tell each story as well as possible and not trying to have them blurred. So the Kelly Courthouse concept focuses on the trial of Ned and his family. As I said, there's 40 trials. But then that allows other stories to be told about the Chinese history through the Chinese inspectorate's building, the telegraph in terms of communication. So it's a packaged, integrated story that we need to tell. So in terms of the authority of, the consideration of the Kelly Vault collections, I think as the Mayor said, the collections predominantly are owned privately, and those private owners could take the collection away tomorrow without any... Council would have no control about that. So we can only work with those collectors about the future of where the best place for the Kelly Vault might be. And obviously the old Beechworth Jail is a significant story in itself in terms of the Kelly story. So Ned was, held there. His mother was held there. And hard labour, etc. So we're trying to leverage off the whole story across the region. So the Ned Kelly report was a product of it wasn't an Indigo Council document, it was T&E led, but also had a number of key stakeholders, including local government, so Indigo, Wangaratta, Mansfield, Benalla were all involved, as well as the police, Parks Victoria because of the Stringy Bark Creek connection, Kelly family members, so each side of the Kelly members, the various factions involved with that, the Glenrowan interests, the old Beechworth Jail, and of course, the State Library and the old Melbourne Jail. So all of those key players had a role in the formation of this document, which gave the authority, I suppose, to say the story of Ned needs to be, of the Kellys, needs to be presented in a way that is unified and integrated across the whole region, and Beechworth is central to that. So I hope that, on top of what the Mayor, I hope that it sort of explains that this is linked to the tourism strategy because of the heritage and cultural aspects of it, but as a separate opportunity to enhance that story and the telling of those stories. That's why we think that the Ned Kelly Alive project is pretty important.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just reply very briefly?
Very quickly, John.
My point is that under 11.3 tonight, you're going to approve the recommendation that the Ned Kelly Alive report findings and investment recommendations, right? And then you go on to other things, but that you're really going to approve that document.
Well, that's not a decision that's been made yet, John.
No,
but
I know, but I mean, sorry, you will talk about
yes.
it. What I'm saying to you is still, and thank you for your answer. I know most of that stuff because I've done my research, but there has been no comparative study or suggestion that I'm aware of about the best place in Beechworth to place a museum, and in my phrase of an enlarged Burke Museum, I'd like you to consider that it could be an annex, such as the top of the town hall. It's just opening your minds to other possibilities.
Yeah, thank you, and that's. I'll get you to finish your comments there.
Yep,
thank you to everybody. I hope you feel you've been heard. Whether you like the answers or not is another thing, but thank you all for your questions. So, continuing on to item 7, confirmation of minutes from the previous meetings. So the resolution is that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 31st of July 2018 as published on the council website be confirmed. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Goldsworthy, seconder. Councillor Murdoch. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Any business arising from the previous minutes? Any deputations and petitions? No, thank you. All right, item 10.1 from Corporate Services is the June 2018 Finance Report. The resolution is that Council accept the draft financial report for the 2017-18 financial year. Do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Goldsworthy, do I have a seconder? Oh, Councillor Murdoch. Okay. Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor?
Look, if you took these financial reports in isolation, you'd think that we were doing very well, showing a surplus of $3.1 million. The reality is that we had quite a bit in forward payments, particularly in grants. So when you look the following month, our cash position goes from over $10 million down to below $8 million. So we're spending it in accordance with our council plan, and our figures for this financial year may not look as rosy, but certainly we're still in a good position.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Murdoch, do you wish to say anything? Anyone else wish to make comment? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. And 10.2 is the July 2018 Finance Report, obviously the first one for the new financial year. The resolution is that Council accept the July 2018 Finance Report. Do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Trenery, seconded. Councillor Goldsworthy. Councillor Trenery, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Madam Mayor, there's not a lot to report in the first month, so no, I'm happy for it to go through.
All right, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Oh, certainly, councillor.
On page 19 of that report, it talks about Buller Gas that we gained $50,000 in the higher value of gas sales. However, we lost $56,000 because of the cost of gas that supply the gas reticulation system. With the snow season being extended, do we expect to gain much more income from Council's Buller Gas project?
Director for Infrastructure.
Thank you. I'll have a go at answering that. Look, if the snow season continues, I think this time last year we actually did see the benefits of an extended season reflected positively, but yeah.
So my understanding is we don't know yet when the season will finish. Is that right? There's a closure date, but it could be extended, but we don't know that yet. Yeah. Oh, it has. I missed that. Oh, that's why I was curious.
We've had record snowfalls, Madam Mayor.
It's excellent.
That was the forecast and it's come true.
Excellent for the skiing industry. And so when's the closure date? Oh, thank you. Okay, didn't realise that. Okay, item 10.3, Assembly of Councillor Records. Oh, sorry. We can vote on that. So, yes, the resolution is that Council accepts the July 2018 Finance Report. All those in favour? Carried. Sorry, thank you. 10.3, Assembly of Councillor Records. The resolution is that Council accepts the attached Assembly of Councillor Records, which of course are available on the website. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Price, seconded Councillor Gaffney. Any comments from anyone? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. 10.4, Council Advisory Committee Minutes. The resolution is that Council receives and notes the resolution of the attached unconfirmed Advisory Committee Minutes and endorses the officer comments. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Shepherd. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Price. Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor Shepherd? Nope. Anyone wish to... Do you have a question, Councillor?
Just a comment, Madam Mayor. On page...
Needs to be a question, Councillor.
Well, I'll wait till question time's over and I'll make a comment then.
Okay. Make your comment, Councillor.
On page 162, there's a report from the Chair of the Audit Committee, which refers to the Accounting Standard 15137-138 regarding accounting treatment of reserves and that they should not and cannot be interpreted as available for funding. I think it's a very important comment from the Chair.
Thank you. And I'll note that that report also spoke very, very positively about the responses of Indigo Shire to the recommendations of the Audit Committee, so that's very pleasing. Okay, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour? Carried. Item 11.1 is the Economic Development Strategy. So the recommendation is that Council adopt the draft Economic Development Strategy 2018 to 2023 with the amendments outlined in this report. This is all, again, available online for you to read. If you would like a hard copy, please let us know and we can do that for you. So I'm going to put the motion. Do I have someone to move that recommendation? Councillor Goldsworthy, do I have a seconder? Councillor Shepherd. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor?
We've been talking about an economic development strategy for quite some time now. We're finally at a stage where it's been out for significant consultation. We've adopted it as a draft. It's gone out again for consultation and we're back now to adopt it. We do have some strategic measures that are quite ambitious. They do achieve population growth by 1% per annum, to grow visitor economy by 1.1 million visitors by 2023, to attract 50 million in funding for private and public sector investment, and that all Indigo townships to achieve a place score higher than 65 or higher. So there are a lot of specifics in this as well. We can only hope that being ambitious, we will achieve our goals. So I recommend it to Council and it gives us a direction forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Shepherd, do you wish to speak to the motion?
This document really goes hand in hand with the tourism strategy, and they work complementary. So it's hard to talk about one without the other. But I think the objectives for this action plan of business engagement, investment attraction, infrastructure development, vibrant and activated town centres, and support for agriculture and the agri-food sector are the five sort of pillars of this document, and I think we look forward to endorsing and activating these areas.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments from councillors? Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. And I would like to thank both the staff that prepared this document, were responsive to the initial concerns that it wasn't visionary enough, have gone back and done that work, but also to the community that have engaged really, really strongly with this, and we thank you all for your input and ideas, and hope that you will read the document and support us in our endeavours to implement it. 11.2 is the tourism strategy. So the resolution is that Council adopts the draft Indigo Destination Game Changer 2023 tourism strategy with the revisions that are outlined in this report, again available to you all to read. Do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Goldsworthy, do I have a seconder? Councillor Murdoch. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor?
Absolutely. It's no different really to the economic development strategy. It's been out for consultation far and wide. Even as a draft, it's gone out to the community. We've received considerable engagement with them. There's been a lot of ideas put forward. Our focus is on trying to develop the four main pillars within the Shire. Reading directly from the report, the social community implications, tourism and the visitor economy play a significant role in the Indigo, contributing 105 million in output and 508 jobs. It's highly influenced by local government. The implementation of the strategy over a 5-year period will deliver measurable growth in the Indigo visitor economy and forecast growth delivering $130 million output and 650 jobs by 2023. So the objectives are to grow the visitation to the Indigo Shire, to grow visitor yield, to improve the visitor experience and have well-informed visitors. The report is important. Once again, it gives us some strategic direction, it gives us justification for going for grants, and it provides an important financial contribution to our Shire. So for that reason, I recommend it.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Murdoch, would you like to speak as a seconder?
Yes. Quite often people say, you know, what has Council done in consultation? And this time I decided to sort of write down a little bit of it. And there were 8 workshops with 152 attendees, 3 ideas generation workshop dinners, 12 sector-specific workshops, 6 consultation visits with the Vic Management Board members, winemakers of Rutherglen, Destination Rutherglen, those sort of places, 60 public exhibitions submissions, 10 drop-in sessions in Rutherglen, Chiltern, Yak, Beechworth and Chiltern. I did say that one. And 48 submissions. The strategy is for a 5-year period, and I assume will be constantly updated and revised as new figures come in and new ideas come about. But there has been a lot of work put into this, and we have to thank our officers for all the work they put in, plus the community who have really come out in their droves.
Anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Price.
I'll just read a paragraph from the report because I think it shows the confidence of the strategy. Indigo Destination Game Changer 2023 Tourism Strategy has a bold objective to lead measurable change to the tourism economy in the 4 sub-regions of the Indigo Shire based around the key tourism destination towns and their surrounding area. By 2023, each of the 4 sub-regions will have measurable growth in tourism visitation, tourism yield and motivating tourism product offerings, delivering a measurably stronger Indigo visitor economy. So as it says a number of times in there, this strategy is measurable, so we will be accountable to you on this.
Okay, so anyone else wish to speak to the motion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. And again, I'd particularly like to thank our tourism manager, Susanna Doyle, who's here tonight in the gallery, for a huge amount of work and effort that's gone into this, and to all of the community people that have participated. Okay, 11.3, the Ned Kelly Alive update and courthouse concept. So the resolution is that Council, 1, supports the Ned Kelly Alive report findings and investment recommendations, 2, supports the Ned Kelly Alive courthouse concept, and 3, allocates a future budget allocation of $500,000 over 3 years, commencing in the 2019-20 financial year, to leverage $500,000 state dollars for the Kelly in the Dock Beechworth Courthouse activation concept. Do I have someone to move that rather wordy motion? Councillor Goldsworthy, do I have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Shepherd. Okay, Councillor Goldsworthy.
The Ned Kelly Alive report is a concept development and business case. It was developed by RDV in conjunction with Tourism North East, from what I can gather. It does have a bold vision for a number of places. One of those is the courthouse. We're looking to spend $1 million with a contribution from the council of $500,000 over 3 years. It is with the objective of increasing tourism numbers from the current number of up until around 70,000 people, so I think it's an additional 28,000 visitors per year. The return on investment is considerable. It would certainly bring our tourism product into a new age, and I think it's well worth supporting. It does mean we have to take a few things on faith. Unfortunately, in local government and government full stop, people expect you to get everything 100% right all the time. We may need to take a leap of faith on this one, but hopefully it will result in a positive outcome for the businesses, not just in Beechworth, but in the broader area.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak?
Yes, I understand John being here today. I've been speaking to John about his concerns around that taking away, well, what might look as though we're taking away the collection from our vault and sending it up to the Beechworth Jail. And I've asked a lot of questions today around whether we should be going down this road. And really, I was persuaded by the fact that even if we were to look at putting it in the Beechworth, in the Burke Museum, we'd have to find the funding for that. And we wouldn't get the funding for that. And the fact is, we're going to be able to leverage from the funding that will be given to the Beechworth Jail, and there's no guarantee that we'll be sending the collection up there. The collection, some of it's owned by us. We'll have our own decision about what we do with our part of the collection. But the Beechworth Jail is seen as being like the number one component in Beechworth by this report, and our courthouse is seen as secondary to that, but as important. And when it was explained to me, there's private funding going to be put into this, which we need, and we need to support that. I agree. I agree that I can see where the state government will be more open to supporting our bid if there's private funding in it as well. So I understand what John was saying earlier, but I think we can persuade him that it's the right way to go.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The total cost of the project is $15.66 million. The old jail project is $7 million. For Indigo Shire and the courthouse, it's $1 million, and the total spend for Indigo Shire is $500,000 over 3 years. It's got to be remembered that this is only a concept plan. There is no funding, there's no date to start. We hope it will start, but this is only the beginning.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Do you wish to sum up?
Just in relation to the forecast expenditure, from what I understand, the figures that Councillor Gaffney just read out were the higher figures. There was a low, medium and high. And from my understanding is the recommendation is to go for those medium figures, which are a $3 million contribution in relation to the Beechworth Jail, and it was a $1 million contribution for the courthouse.
All right, so anyone else wish to speak? I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. And once again, we've had a great deal of engagement on this. People feel very strongly about it. John raised some issues tonight that we've been discussing. How do we make this work with our existing historic precinct? We understand that that's very important, and we absolutely agree with that. However, if this happens the way it's been outlaid in that document, this is a very, very exciting opportunity for Beechworth and the surrounding shire to celebrate and showcase the story of Ned Kelly in a way that's never been done before. So let's hope that we get the outcomes that we want from this, and that it does actually do the thing that a lot of people have been asking us to do, which is to celebrate the heritage of this shire in a way that so many of you are asking us to support. So thank you very much. Item 11.4, Indigo Economic Development and Tourism Advisory Committee 2018-19 Festival and Events Grants Allocations. The resolution is that Council distribute $26,000 in the 18-19 Festival and Events Grants Program as follows, and they are outlined here. There's 11 of them. I'm not going to read them all out. Clearly, they're all small amounts of money because $26,000 doesn't go very far. I will say, before I put the motion, that we would dearly like to have been able to fund all of the requests. That wasn't possible, so we use a set of criteria, and we have a committee with independent people from the community on it to help us make these decisions. So I'm going to put the motion. Do I have someone to move that we accept the grants as allocated? Councillor Price? Or Councillor Shepherd, do you have a question?
Could I just ask a question?
Sure.
Yes. I note that there's, through all of them, there's estimated cost of logistics. And I remember last year at the meeting I was at, quite a few of the logistics were taken as we would cover them, like bin hire, and even of the ones that didn't get their grant funding. I'm just wondering, is that the same this year? Will a lot of these logistics be covered?
Yep. Councillor Goldsworthy, do you want to answer that?
So the council does have a separate budget in relation to the assistance in staging some of the events for logistics, and during the discussions that we had around whether some of these events should be funded, there was comments made by council staff that they were already assisting them or proposed to assist them in relation to those sort of logistics, whether it's bins or traffic management, that sort of thing.
Okay. All right, so do I have a seconder? Councillor Price has moved the motion. Seconder? Councillor Shepherd. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor?
Just to say congratulations to the committee. This would have been a difficult task to have whittled it down to just 11, I think the Mayor said. It's something that's always oversubscribed. The requests this year were for $67,356.80 from 24 event applications. So I think they've done pretty well to get that to fund 11 events, and hopefully 13 others were picked up with some logistics help, as Councillor Goldsworthy alluded to.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak to the motion? I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Carried, and congratulations to the winners of those grants. Recipients, I should say. 11.5, 2018-19 community grants. The resolution is that Council distribute $50,000 in the 2018-19 Indigo Shire Community Grants Program as follows, and it's outlined here. There are in total, I think, is it 28? 30. Oh, sorry, yeah, 30. So again, $30,000 into $50,000 doesn't allow a lot of money to be distributed, but we did try to support as many as we could. And again, I'd like to thank the committee for their work. Would you like to move that motion, councillor?
No, I've actually just realised I've got a conflict of interest. I was on the executive committee of the Beechworth Rotary Club when we first considered a pontoon for Lake Samble. So I disqualify myself. I'll step out just because I have a
conflict. Okay, thank you, councillor. Out you go. We'll let you know when you can come back in. All right, so I'm going to put the motion. Do I have someone to move it? Councillor Murdoch. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Murdoch, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I was sitting on this committee, not voting on this committee, and I have to say that there are always lots of grants wanted and not quite the money to go around that we would like, but the committee has been very, very good in that they look at the applications, they work out over a period of 5 or 6 years whether they've had applications in before and try and make sure that what they do spreads the money relatively evenly and fairly across the community. And these are often grants that help small organisations like the toy libraries and tennis clubs, just operate a bit better. And so, and I have noticed with the people on the committee, I really think I'd hate to be sitting in their budget room because they are very, very careful with the money. They look at who has had grants before and what sort of money that they've got to go on with the projects that they've wanted. So it is a really good process. We have people on the committee who work very hard and put a lot of time in. May I add that the applications go to about that high, so there's a lot of reading in it. So I'm really thankful for the community members that are on this. So it's a good project. It's something that makes a lot of organisations just get over the line with their projects. So I recommend this.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Shepherd, do you wish to speak as a seconder? Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Price.
Just to say that I think this time last year we were disappointed with the uptake of the arts and culture grants and the youth grants. So it's really good to see this year that we've had 3 youth initiatives funded and 5 arts and culture grants funded. So that's fantastic.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak? I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Mr Kronberg, you could tell Councillor Goldsworthy to come back in if you like on the way out. Thank you for that. Okay. 11.6 is planning permit 18-0075, place of assembly, function centre at 31 Nickel Road, Allens Flat. The resolution is that council approve the planning permit application 18-0075 subject to conditions and issue a notice of decision to grant a permit. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Trenery, do I have a seconder? Councillor Murdoch, do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor Trenery?
We've always looked for opportunities, especially in a shire like ours, where we've got on-farm income increasing without affecting the farm, and this certainly does that and achieves that, which is absolutely fantastic in that area. Also, there's obviously some objections that have come through, and they've all been answered really well. So it's I think it's a win-win for that whole area. That's a great concept.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Murdoch, do you wish to speak as a seconder? Anyone else wish to speak to this resolution? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 11.7 is planning permit 180102 for industry of mechanic in 1552 Diffie Road, Beechworth. The resolution is that council approves planning permit application 180102 subject to the conditions and issue a notice of decision to grant a permit. Do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Goldsworthy, do I have a seconder? Councillor Trenery. Councillor Goldsworthy.
Look, in our rural land use policy, there are a number of objectives. I'll read out a couple of them. They're to support the use of land that's in conjunction with agricultural production, to support local employment and value-adding opportunities in rural areas, to support the growth and diversification of agricultural and rural industries, to provide for residential land use where associated with and required to support a productive agricultural enterprise. James Powell, who's in the audience at the moment with his parents, Tom and Erin, is a very industrious young man. He has not that long ago completed a mechanical apprenticeship, a diesel mechanic. He's taken a block of land that was derelict and looked quite unloved, made it into something that's very usable. It's on the outskirts of town. It's within a stone's throw of the industrial area. He's forwarded already a number of photos that were taken prior to him taking ownership of the land. I don't know whether you've had time to read your emails, but he's also passed on via me a letter of support from a near neighbour where they're supporting his application. I can only say that we don't have that many mechanics in the Beechworth area. He provides a terrific service, and I think we should support this and support him in his enterprise.
Okay, Councillor Trenery, do you wish to speak as a seconder? Anyone else wish to speak to this motion? I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? And it's carried. Congratulations. Oh. You're right, too late. Okay. 11.8, Indigo Planning Scheme Amendment C69, Stanley rezoning, panel report and recommendations. So the resolution is that Council note the planning panel report for the Indigo Planning Scheme Amendment C69, adopt the amendment together with the changes submitted to the panel in the letter dated 22nd of June 2018 from Habitat Planning, submit the adopted amendment with changes for approval to the Minister for Planning, together with a request that Council be allowed to make further submissions prior to the making of a final decision by the Minister, and arrange for additional expert advice and further discussions with the Country Fire Authority in order to submit any supporting information as may be requested by the Minister. Do I have someone to move this? Councillor Goldsworthy, do I have a seconder? Councillor Price. Councillor Goldsworthy, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I haven't moved this much since I was cooking barley, but anyway.
You're very active.
Look, what I would say about this is the Stanley community for a long time has just wanted a township. It shouldn't be so hard to get a business up and going in the main street to have a post office, and it was a battle that we had to fight a number of years ago. This is about providing them with the framework so that they can be a little village, and that's all they're looking for. It's not about expanding to the size of Beechworth or anything like that. It's just about being able to have shops to offer a service and to have a community. We've run into a bit of a hurdle, but we'll keep pushing forward, so this is about that.
Councillor Price, do you wish to speak?
Just to acknowledge what it says in the conclusion, that there's some degree of risk for Council in not adopting the panel report officer's suggestion. In not adopting the panel report, officers suggest the consequences of this are minimal. Officers strongly believe that the panel report is unsatisfactory and that Council is entitled to ask for this to be reviewed by way of the Minister's approval function.
Anyone else wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Murdoch.
Well, I do know.
You just turned yourself off, Councillor.
I don't know. I do note that it's not for growing the town or growing the area, which it specifically states that we're trying to keep the area in the same size as it is now. We're not trying to develop a great metropolis there. It's just making it a level playing field for a place that wants to be a little town, as Councillor.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak to this motion? I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. 11.9 is the Q Springs Water Extraction Monthly Monitoring. The recommendation is that Council notes the Q Springs Water Extraction Facility Monitoring Report. It's all right, I'll let people leave. Good night. The Council notes the Extraction Facility Monitoring Report content and the action undertaken where required. Do I have someone to move this? Oh, Councillor Gaffney to move, Councillor Murdoch to second. Sorry.
I did ask this question at the last monthly meeting to the CEO. How often is the meter checked by Goulburn Murray Water?
Do you want to answer that, CEO, or do you want it put through to... Who are you asking?
I can't answer what I gave last time. Mark, you can answer that.
Need to use him. Oh.
To be perfectly honest, I don't know, Councillor. I can make inquiries for you.
All right, so you'll take that on notice and get the response from Goulburn Murray Water. Thank you.
And the second question is, when are Goulburn Murray Water coming to present to Council?
I saw...
October.
Yeah, October. It has been...
Do we have a date in October?
I think it's 2nd or 3rd or something like that from memory.
We'll take it on notice, Councillor, and let you know.
It's in our diaries.
And in regard to Q Springs, I just wish the Mayor all the best at the MDA meeting next Thursday.
Thank you, Councillor. So you're moving the motion. Councillor Murdoch, do you wish to second? Do you wish to speak to that? Sorry. A seconder. Anyone else wish to speak to this? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Item 12.1, Declaration of Public Highway, High Street, Rutherglen.
I'd like to...
Oh, hang on. The CEO is just going to make a statement.
Yes. Can I borrow your speaker?
Yeah. Any chance that I could move a motion to defer this first?
Just get an update from the CEO first.
Thank you, Councillor. I think I'm going to take the words out of your mouth. Through you, Madam Chair and Mayor, the staff would like to withdraw this particular item. As CEO, we did place this item on the agenda in good faith based on trying to assist a long-term issue that's been unresolved there, and one of the properties involved is attempting to sell their lot, so we tried to bring it up as fast as we could. We did bring it up based on a verbal understanding that all matters have been resolved. So in between placing this on the agenda in the last couple of days, can I say, for that, on page 111 of the agenda, recommendation number 6 talks about a multi-staged process, and item number 6 on the recommendation talks about there being subsequent stages in this matter being done down the track. And if I could refer you to page 114, it outlines a sort of a fourfold process, and part of that fourfold process, the third item was the creation of a carriage easement down the track that would be done. Now, the last couple of days there's been some discussion amongst the people involved about the exact dimensions of that easement, and so there's a little bit of clarity that's needed there which we weren't able to provide by today. So our preference is that those minor matters actually be resolved before we bring the paper up for adoption, so that there's hopefully no impediments to the whole process following its way through the system. So we just ask that be withdrawn by now. The local law does allow for it to be deferred, but I do need a resolution for that to happen. And the local law does talk about the resolution for deferral, including a reason for that. So what I'm asking is that this item be deferred to enable the reasonable resolution of outstanding matters between the affected parties.
So I'm happy to move that item 12.1 be deferred until the next meeting, ordinary meeting of council, or at a time that the CEO is able to put it to council to his satisfaction.
Do I have a seconder for the deferment motion? Councillor Trenery. Do you wish to speak to it? No need, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to put the motion that we defer this. All those in favour? 13.1 Community Engagement Framework. So the resolution is that Council 1 endorses the Draft Community Engagement Policy 2018 and Draft Community Engagement Strategy 2018 as attached. And secondly, makes the Draft Community Engagement Policy 2018 and Draft Community Engagement Strategy 2018 available for community feedback for 30 days. Do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Murdoch and seconded Councillor Price. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor?
As this is our draft community engagement policy, and we are really asking that this go out to the public so that the public can read it, make comment and give it back to us so that we can take those comments on board and make sure that we've got this right. So I'm just recommending that that happens.
Thank you. Councillor Price, do you wish to speak?
It says in here that the community takes a keen interest in council activities, and I think this council has certainly taken a keen interest in involving the community. So it's important that we have an appropriate policy, a high-level strategic statement of exactly that. So we welcome your engagement in the engagement policy.
That's right. Okay. Anyone else wish to speak to this motion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. And once again, we do ask for your input on yet another document that we're putting out, but that way we get to know what you think of it. Well done, and Roberta. I would like to also congratulate our Manager of Communications, Roberta Baker, for putting this together and for all of her hard work on our continuous improvement with community engagement. Thank you. Okay, so there are no notices of motion from councillors tonight. Councillor reports. Sorry, councillor reports. Yes, Councillor Shepherd.
I've attended a couple of meetings that I just thought would be worth bringing up. Yep. Murray Arts had an AGM and I'm on the board. We've gone to having a skills-based board and a strategic advisory committee. We've welcomed Richard Hull, Rachel Gadd, David Gordon and Donna Caffrey to the board, and we have council, local government, and Darren Pope, who's from our Beechworth Arts Council, is also involved on the strategic committee. So I think we'll see interesting things coming out of this new Murray Arts group. The other one I've attended that I'd like to give a report on is the Goulburn Broken Greenhouse Alliance that we're members of, and as well as nearly all the councils really in this area, our Hume region really, are all involved. Their vision is for communities to actively respond to climate change and to help build a positive future. They're normally full-day meetings, and I come away always, Jill Kroom is also our staff member on it, I come away with just fascinated with the amount of work that's being done in our region at the moment in this area. Highlights something they've just recently done is a public forum on electric vehicles and building the case for electric vehicles being used in councils, in council fleets. They're also they're working to build the resilience of agricultural economy by having a tool that we can use to look at that we'll be able to use as a council to look at what is best planted, what's best grown in areas. And the opportunity that was discussed at this meeting was to join with other Victorian councils to buy wholesale electricity in a power purchasing agreement, which will come to our CEO for discussion in a couple of weeks. And of course, we all attended the Beechworth Forum, which was a successful event, I think.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other reports from councillors tonight? Nope. As I mentioned, and it will be in my August diary. It's always a bit behind here, so this month talks about the July one, but the CEO and I were in Canberra in August talking to a range of politicians about a lot of issues. Obviously, the water extraction was one of them, but we also were talking about funding for small rural shires, sustainability issues, Chiltern Industrial Precinct, sport and rec priorities, renewable energy opportunities, the Yak Health Master Plan, tracks and trails funding for particularly the western part of the Shire, Rutherglen and Waganya, the Ageing Well strategy and mobile black spot funding. So we worked hard while we were there and we were very well received, so let's hope we get some good results out of that. Any other reports? No. There's a copy of my diary from July in there. Do I have any questions on that, Councillor Gaffney? I knew you would.
I do have one,
Yeah,
Mayor,
big surprise.
seeing you asked. On the 10th of July, I noticed that you attended, it says here, meeting tree removal. Was that meeting with a tree removal or against tree removal or?
It was a meeting regarding tree removal. And I think as outlined by Mr Kronborg today, it was in relation to concerns about the way some of the trees have been removed at Mayday Hills and in general around the Shire. So, yeah, concerned constituent about that. And to general business, do we have any items for general business tonight? Yes, Councillor Shepherd.
I attended on your behalf a lovely ceremony where we congratulated and presented to Lara Johnson of the 1st Yakandana Scout Group the highest achievement in a scouting division, which is the Scout Medallion, and it's the first one achieved since the group reformed in 2007. And I'd also like to congratulate the leaders of that group who were very encouraging and supporting of her and all the other young people that were there. Also, I'd like to congratulate Destination Rutherglen and Federation Council for the Rutherglen and Corowa Unlocked event that they did this weekend and how successful that was. Most of it was booked out. Beautiful weekend. I went to a few of them and it really showcased our region in a very successful way, and I'd just like to congratulate them on the work that they did in that.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other general business? Councillor Murdoch.
Yeah, just following on Councillor Shepherd's talking about Rutherglen, I did go to the Rutherglen function, and it was fantastic. And the place I went to was the convent, and I've always been past that convent, which has been closed ever since I've been in Chiltern, which is 30 years, and it was great to have a look through it and see the plans that they're going to now get it up and get it going again. Not as a convent, but a private investor's bought it and he's going to make it into, I think, accommodation. So that's great. And I also attended the Chiltern Antec Fair over the weekend, which was another great success. We had, I think, more people here this year than we had last year, so it's getting better and better, and it's well worth a look for anybody that comes to the one next year, because some of the antiques are fantastic, but a lot of them are within the price that people can pay for them, so it's great.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just got some questions about the Beechworth to Yakandanda rail trail. In May 2017, Jacqueline Symes from the state government came out and announced a $12 million grant for tracks and trails in the northeast, and particularly $5.2 million for the Beechworth to Yakandanda rail trail. We're now in August 2018. Have we received any money whatsoever, even $1 from the state government for that project? And if not, do we know why not? Particularly with them going into caretaker mode in 2 months.
So I think the happy news on that is that I actually saw an email this afternoon saying that the funding agreement was to be signed next week to release some funds, and I know that Jacqueline Symes is very keen to see some work commenced on that trail. So it has taken a long time, but it sounds as if they're finally going to start delivering the money supposedly next week.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've probably raised this about 10 or 12 times, and the answer's been similar. We're about to sign, it's imminent. do we have a date when we might get some money? Like, a promise is a promise, but it's getting a bit long in the tooth.
Yeah, agreed, Councillor. And I certainly can tell you that in any of my dealings with James Flintoft and Matt Nelson from Regional Development Victoria, that's my first question, and they duck when they see me coming. So they all know that we're waiting anxiously for the money, and I think with the state election looming, I know that Jacqueline Symes is also very keen to see things start on the promise that she made, and she's also putting pressure on her own government to get this happening. So I expect that we'll see some results very shortly, but if not, we'll be continuing to ask the question. Anything else? Okay, so we're going to move into confidential to consider the membership of the Indigo Shire Community Grants and Awards Advisory Committee. We do this in a confidential motion because we talk about and have access to information about people's own why they are applying and what their credentials are. So we keep that information private. So at this stage, we're moving into confidential. We'll be coming back out of confidential to announce the outcome of that, and that will be the final item. So those of you that wish to leave, we absolutely understand if you don't want to hang around for the closure of the meeting. Screen. And open the gallery door. Tell them to come back in. Yeah, I'll put the heater on. It is cold out there.
Very bossy.
All right, so I've just put the motion that we move into confidential. Councillor Price has moved it, Councillor Murdoch has seconded. Do I have any opposition to that motion? Councillor Goldsworthy. So, Councillor Price, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'll reserve my right.
Councillor Murdoch? I don't think you can actually as a mover. Sorry, you can't reserve your right.
Oh, sorry, I moved the motion.
Fine. Councillor Murdoch, do you wish to speak as a seconder?
As a seconder, but no.
You reserve your right. Councillor Goldsworthy.
So my objection to it is that we are looking to be as open and transparent as possible, and I get that we are talking about particular people, but given the motion that we're about to examine within confidential, I'm unsure that there's any particular opposition to it. We're fairly inclusive in what the motion is. So I'm just not sure of the benefit of it, and what it does do is by going into confidential is that it's just another check in a box to say that we've moved into a confidential session.
So you're
that
querying
we get reported against.
that you're querying the need to do it, and I think the CEO is going to respond.
So I get that it does does have personal and confidential information within some of the reports. I'm just not sure that we're actually going to discuss any of that when we move into confidential.
Okay, so anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Hang on, I might get the CEO to respond to that, and then you can say yes.
Chair, I think we need to have that door open because there's no reason why we go live stream and not have the gallery. Okay, that's fine, as long as they've had the opportunity. Look, a couple of things with the idea of going to confidential. I think we need to pay respect to the right of the council to debate and discuss the inclusion of who goes onto the committees. So there are recommendations made, and then it's up to yourselves then to decide who goes on the committee. So I think to pay respect to the process that you are able to have that open and honest discussion about who should or should not be on a committee, that discussion should be had without the benefit of the whole world listening into that discussion, because there are people, there are personnel matters. You wouldn't debate someone applying for a job in an open council meeting and have open to the public. So nor why should you for a committee meeting do the same thing. Second part is that I don't think there ever should be a presumption that we know how we're going to vote on this, or we know there's going to be no discussion, because that discussion needs to be had in the council meeting, and those those matters aren't decided beforehand. They are decided in the meeting themselves, and you don't know what the questions are that anyone might ask or want to ask until you actually get to that item and you're open to that discussion. So I think to give respect to the whole process, you should routinely go into confidential, routinely have the ability to debate it, even if it only goes for 10 seconds and you all agree, and come straight out again.
Okay, thank you, CEO. Any other questions from councillors or comments to speak to the motion of whether or not we go into confidential? Okay, I'm going to put the motion that we do move into confidential. All those in favour? Carry. Against?
Division.
Those in favour? Councillor, sorry, I'm trying to keep a straight face. Councillor Gaffney, Councillor Murdoch, Councillor Price, Councillor Shepherd, Councillor Trenery, Councillor O'Connor. Those against? Councillor Goldsworthy. Thank you. So the motion's carried. We are moving into confidential. Thank you, councillors. So the outcome of that motion was that all people that applied for that committee are now members, and we thank them very much. And we're now just informing the gallery that they can re-enter the chamber. All right, so now that we're out of confidential, I'd like to thank everybody for their contribution tonight, for those people who attended in the gallery, for those that are watching online, and I'm going to declare the meeting closed. Thank you.